to make this work, I need more from you than your commitment to turn out and vote Green. The thing that we need to save this country is to wake up the largest voting bloc. The largest voting bloc in Canada for the last couple of elections has been the people who didn't vote. And there's no website that's going to make this happen. There is no campaign from Elections Canada. Well, they're not allowed to campaign anymore. The only way we can make this happen is personal. It's a buddy system. I'm promoting the idea of voting buddies. What you want to do is between now and the next election, given that 40% of Canadians didn't vote, chances are, whether you know it or not now, you know some people who didn't vote. Find out, ask around. Did you vote in 2011? Who did you vote for? Find someone who maybe never has voted. I was shocked the other day. I was speaking in my riding, and I'm now 60, and a gentleman a little bit older than me came up to me and said, just want you to know, and he was very distinguished, very well dressed. I said, I just want you to know, he said, and I make cultural assumptions. I hate it, I admit it. This guy looked like he probably was a wealthy businessman. He said to me, just want you to know, I voted for you in 2011. I'm really glad I did. I'm really glad you're my member of parliament. It's the first time I ever voted. And I said, well, I was thinking, okay, so did you move here from somewhere else? Do you mean this is the first time you voted in Canada? He said, no. I was born here. It's just the first time I ever realized there was anything worth voting for. So that's why I voted for you. So it's the first time I ever voted. So I was gobsmacked. Okay, so don't make assumptions about who you might know who votes and who doesn't. Find someone who didn't vote in the last election and ask if they'd be willing to be your buddy, that you want to take them to the polls. You're not going to ask how they plan to vote. It doesn't even matter. If they say, where do I find out what the parties stand for, direct them to websites, but get them to the polls on an advance poll day. Because remember, the Unfair Elections Act is going to make it much harder to vote than it used to be, particularly for someone who's never voted before, particularly for young people, particularly for First Nations people, particularly for homeless people, but a lot of people are going to find it harder to vote. So make sure you don't wait till voting day. Go to an advance poll. So if the paperwork isn't right, you've got a margin for error to get your buddy all organized and come back. Because I don't want to hear, I've heard so many sad stories of students who tried to vote in the last election, got to the polling station and were told that their paperwork wasn't right, that they didn't have enough to prove where they lived. So this could make a real difference. The hope and inspiration of the Green Party is in bringing people back to democracy, reawakening that sense that we're in control of our own future, that we're not living in a corporatocracy where the transnationals control everything and we're bystanders. We're still in a democracy. We're not in a dictatorship. We can reclaim our own power to control our future, but we have to vote. And what happens when people get excited about a Green candidate in their riding is that voter turnout goes up. In 2011 in my riding, and you probably will remember, I defeated Gary Lunn, who was a member of Stephen Harper's cabinet. It's not like I went after some weak MP that nobody, I couldn't stand to run against anybody except someone in Harper's cabinet. So I ran against Gary Lunn, and he'd been popular. He'd been in that riding for 14 years. By the way, the smart money, the so-called strategic vote crowd, looked at the results from the 2008 election and said, oh, people can't vote Green. The strategic vote here is to vote Liberal, because the Liberals almost won in 2008. Don't get sucked in by people who think they're smarter than voters, who look at data from 2011 and think it predicts what happens in 2015. There were people who said to me, you're just going to split the vote. It's terrible that you're running here, because people are going to like you, and then that's just that. You're going to ensure that Gary Lunn gets in again. I beat Gary Lunn by 7,000 votes. That's applause for the voters in my riding, who, by the way, voter turnout was other than Prince Edward Island, which has high voter turnout in tiny little ridings, it's a tiny little province, it's okay. Other than PEI, Saanich Gulf Islands, with 100,000 electors in the riding at the time, had 75% voter turnout, the highest in Canada, because people knew that their vote was going to make a difference. People got excited about the fact they were going to go and cast their ballot and feel as though this time it might make a real difference. This time I'm not told I have to hold my nose and vote for someone I don't want because I've got to do it because otherwise the guy I really don't want is going to get in. when you're freed from the shackles of the thinking that invades strategic voting and you vote for what you want, you can get almost giddy about it. So, Saanich Gulf Islands, I have the highest voter turnout in Canada, except for PEI. The next Green elected was Andrew Weaver, Nobel Prize-winning climate scientist, professor at University of Victoria. He won in Oak Bay Gordon Head. Overlaps with my riding by a bit. I've got some constituents who say to me every time they see, I'm so fortunate, I'm so lucky, I'm so happy, I have a Green MLA and a Green MP, and they're very happy about it. But Andrew Weaver won with the highest voter turnout in British Columbia in that election. And Andrew said on election night, because he'd been told the same stuff, you're going to split the vote, conservative. Andrew Weaver said on election night, Greens didn't split the vote in Oak Bay Gordon Head. Greens are the vote in Oak Bay Gordon Head. You know, it changes your dynamic. And then in New Brunswick, other side of the country, I don't know how many of you paid attention to David Kuhn winning his seat. Leader of the New Brunswick Green Party defeated the sitting energy minister. Oh, I forgot to mention, Andrew Weaver defeated a sitting member of Christy Clark's cabinet. It's called the Liberal Party, but in BC it's the Conservative Party. So where Greens succeed, it's where citizens re-engage, decide to believe in their own power to change the existing system that's bedded in cynicism and fear and contempt for the electorate, because it assumes that people who suppress the vote, who run trickster campaigns like robocalls, who are willing to lie to you and run attack ads and create and instill a fear-based movement. When we say to them, get the hell out of here, we want our democracy back, it works. And people come back to the idea that voting has power. So I'm excited about the next election. I'm really thrilled you're all here. I talked longer than I meant to. I hope you can forgive me. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much.